Waltermeyer, and today I'm going to make with you a very seasonal pie, pumpkin pie. Everybody loves pumpkin pie, at least I do. It's one of my personal favorites. I feel like I'm eating a vegetable. It kind of justifies dessert. So we've got some great ingredients here, all organic. I'm a huge organic fan. So what I have here is 2 teaspoons of pumpkin pie spice, 2 tablespoons of flour. I'm using einkorn flour, but you can just use regular white flour is fine too. This is 1/2 cup of organic sugar, 1/2 cup of organic brown sugar. This is the pumpkin puree. Now, if you're a purist, you can make it from scratch. I'm taking a shortcut and I'm just using the canned organic pumpkin puree, which is 15 some odd ounces, something like that. And then I've got 1.25 cups of almond milk. I'm using non-dairy milk. And then I am using some eggs. This is not a totally vegan recipe, but you could probably use an egg substitute, although I have not tried that. So what I have here is 1 whole egg, and I'm gonna be adding 3 egg yolks. There's 2 in there already. I wanted to show you the process of separating out the yolk from the white. These are beautiful eggs. I get these from a friend of mine who actually has chickens in her backyard. So you're basically just gonna take the egg, crack it, and just very carefully, you want to make sure you don't get the shells in there. It's a little bit tricky, but you're separating the yolk from the white. So again, that was 3 yolks and 1 whole egg. So now we're just going to mix it all together. First, I'm blending my sugar into the pumpkin puree. And I'm going to slowly add my eggs and make sure that I'm beating them as I go. And then our flour, that's kind of the secret ingredient to prevent it from cracking after it's baked. And our pumpkin pie spice. Now you'll see that there are lumps from the flour. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put our immersion blender in there to smooth out the lumps from the flour. So to make our pie crust, we have all of our ingredients here. I have some chilled butter. You can use vegan butter or whatever butter you like. This is 8 tablespoons. It's cold, it's chopped up in little pieces. And I also have some salt. This is a 1/2 teaspoon of sea salt. And then we have a tablespoon of sugar. And then we're gonna be adding 4 tablespoons of ice water. You want this, again, to be very cold. The colder your ingredients, the flakier and lighter your pie crust will be. In here we have our flour, and this is a special kind of flour. Leave it to me to discover this einkorn flour. It's unusual, you probably haven't heard of it unless you're really keen on health food types of things, but I love it. It's einkorn flour. It's one of the few types of wheat that was never hybridized. It's an ancient form of wheat. So even people with wheat sensitivities can sometimes tolerate this, like myself. I don't do so great with wheat, but this one is one that I can handle in small amounts. So Jovial's the company. I don't know if there's any other brands. I think this is the only brand of einkorn flour out there. So we have 1.5 cups of flour in here. I like to make my pie crust in the food processor. It just, again, you're not using, a fork or even a pastry cutter, just makes it fast and easy. I'm all about shortcuts. So I'm gonna add my butter in there and our sea salt. Sugar, if you wanna leave this out, you can. And I'm gonna blend this all together and then gradually add the ice water, 1 tablespoon at a time. You just wanna blend it just until it's kind of a crumbly meal so that the butter gets evenly dispersed throughout the flour. With the food processor running, we're gonna gradually add our ice water. Just until it starts to come together and forms a ball. So on a lightly dusted board, you're going to flatten out your dough into a disc. This is where you really want to minimally handle your dough. You don't want to handle it too much, otherwise it will get tough. Gather it together into a ball and press it into a flat disc. That'll make it easier to roll out once it's chilled because it does get quite stiff in the refrigerator. Now we're going to transfer it over into some plastic, wrap it up, and refrigerate it for 45 minutes to get it nice and cold. So here's our refrigerated disc of dough. We're just going to put it on our lightly floured surface, sprinkle it with a little flour, roll it out. You can use a traditional rolling pin, or sometimes I like to use this little Japanese pounding mallet. And you just want to work quickly. Some people use a chilled marble rolling pin just to keep everything nice and cold. When it gets to be about this size, that's where I transfer to a piece of parchment paper just for easy lifting. And I also lightly flour the parchment. Place that on there. You can put another piece of parchment on top, or in this case, a piece of plastic wrap. This is a little trick of the trade. If your cutting board is slipping like mine was, if you put a lightly damp paper towel underneath your board, it'll prevent it from moving. And by the way, over here we have our pie plate all ready to go, and it's lightly greased with a little bit of avocado oil. And you just want to evenly roll out your pie dough into a 9-inch circle. So now we have our big circle of dough. We're gonna just peel off the plastic wrap and place it into our lightly oiled pie plate. I'm just gonna put this on top like so, and then flip it around. I press down in the middle to just get that centered, and then press around the edges. And this is where, you know, if your dough somehow has gotten soft or come to room temperature too much, and it starts to be tricky to handle, you can just refrigerate this whole thing, parchment paper and all, and then once it's chilled for 5 or 10 minutes, you'll be able to peel it off a lot easier because your dough will harden up again. But that's not the case now. It's coming off quite easily, so we're in good shape. Now sometimes this happens where, you know, okay, reality moment. This didn't get quite totally to the top edge here, but that's fine because look, we've got some excess there that we can just trim off and just tack on over there. Okay, so we're going to pre-bake this pie crust. Now, how long you pre-bake your pumpkin pie crust is, you know, that varies. So you can bake it for 10 minutes like I'm gonna do, or some people believe in pre-baking your pumpkin pie crust as long as 20 minutes or more to really just get it well done before actually adding the filling. So that's an option. If you're gonna be pre-baking it for 20 minutes or more, I definitely recommend using a crust protector like this, or even just strips of aluminum foil around the edges just to avoid your outer crust getting overdone. Now, if you want to get fancy and make a little crimping, that's always nice. So I'm literally just taking my fingers and doing a little crimping of the edges just to kind of add a nice little fluted design that's kind of typical for pie crust. It looks pretty and it's easy to make. So again, I'm just sort of going around here pinching like so. And when you're pre-baking your crust, you can put dried beans or baking beads on the bottom to keep it weighted down. I find it's not really necessary. It doesn't really bubble up for me, but it just depends. Maybe it depends on your oven and so many other variables. All right, so we're gonna pop this in the oven for 10 minutes and then fill it with our filling. Okay, so here's our pre-baked crust. Now we're gonna go ahead and add our filling, which thankfully the bubbles died down. As you saw before when we did the immersion blender, it really got kind of foamy and bubbly. But as it sits while the pie crust is getting baked, it really is not a problem. Okay, so we're gonna fill that up. All that delicious pie filling. You can taste this already. Oh, it smells so good from the pumpkin pie spice. And this just really fills your kitchen as it's baking with that distinct aroma that just says fall. At this point, we're gonna cover the crust with our crust protector here. I love this thing. It's just so handy. It's made out of silicone. It's so handy, and that just makes it really easy. We're gonna pop this in the oven for 50 to 60 minutes at 350, and it will be perfect pumpkin pie. So here's our finished pie out of the oven and smelling irresistible. I hope this inspires you to make your own pumpkin pie, and let me know how it turns out. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend, and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.